Now what we're going to do is we're going to look at solving systems of inequalities by graphing. So instead of equations, we have inequalities. An inequality is either less than, greater than or equal to, or less than or equal to. So notice that instead of an equal sign, what we have is an inequality. Now the difference, if you remember from first semester, is that when we have these, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be shading. So we're going to be shading above if it's greater than or equal to. We're going to be shading below if it's less than or equal to. Now, whenever it's greater than, it's going to be a dashed line. Whenever it's less than, it's also going to be a dashed line. The equal sign means that we have a solid line. So what's going to be different with this than first semester is that instead of one inequality, what we have are two inequalities. So we're going to graph both of those inequalities. Just like before, we're going to make our XY axis. I'm going to start with my first inequality. This is y is less than 2. So my y-axis, I'm going to go to positive 2. I'm drawing a horizontal line. Notice that it's less than, so it's a dashed horizontal line. Since it's less than, I'm going to shade below. Now I'm going to look at my second one. This is x is greater than or equal to 3. So I'm going to go to 3. Since it's x, it's a vertical line. This is a solid vertical line. Once again, the reason that it's solid is because of the equal sign right there. Since it's greater than 3, we're going to go to the right. Now my answer is where the two overlap. I see red, I see blue right here, so I'm going to make it darker. That right there is my answer. It's not an ordered pair like the last two lessons. What it is it's a shading. So looking at our second example, we'll do the same thing. We're going to make our XY axis. For my first inequality, my y-intercept is negative 3. So I'm going to plot a point at negative 3 on the y-axis. My slope is 2, which is 2 over 1. So I go up 2, the right 1. To make sure my line is straight, I'm going to go up 2 to the right 1 again. I see that it's a solid line. And because it's greater than, I'm going to shade above. With my second inequality, I don't see a y-intercept, so I know it's 0. My slope is 1, so that's a 1 over 1. So I go up 1 to the right 1. To make sure that it's straight, I go up 1 to the right 1 again. I draw a dashed line this time. And because it's greater than, I'm going to shade above the line. Now, my final answer is where the two overlap. So wherever I see red and blue together, what I'm going to do is I am going to darken it so I can tell what my answer is. Now, looking at the third example, we're going to do the same thing. For my first inequality, I see my y-intercept is 1. So I plot a point at 1 on the y-axis. My slope is negative a half. So from this point, I go down 1 to the right 2, down 1 and to the right 2 again. I'm going to make a dashed line. The reason that it's dashed because this is less than, not less than or equal to, and since it's less than, I'm shading below. Now, looking at my second inequality, I'm going to get the y by itself. So I'm going to subtract the 2x. then I'm going to divide it by -3. Now, if you remember from first semester, whenever I divide by a negative, what happens is I switch my inequality. So now it becomes y is greater than or equal to 2/3 x minus 2. My y-intercept is -2. My slope is 2/3. So I go up 2 to the right 3, or I go down 2 to the left 3. This time my line is solid. And once again, the reason that it's solid is when I'm looking at this, I see a line underneath, which tells me that it's a solid line. Because it's greater than, I'm going to shade above. And once again, my answer is where the red and the blue lines overlap. I'm going to make that a little bit darker.